right then, from the top. I'm not going to read this to you. You know what it says. Okay. The too high, try again, and the too low, try again. So what I decided to do, I'm just going to move down a little bit. I'll go through everything. But right here, technically, when you look at it, I came up with this at least, and you may or may not agree. I came up with 5 different error conditions. You didn't put anything in the box whatsoever, so it says no guess made, try again. You put something non-numeric in, okay? You put something out of range, so it was either a negative number or a number greater than 100 for your guess. You guess too high or you guess too low. These two really aren't errors, the too high and the too low, but I just call them that anyway. Does all that make sense to everybody? That makes sense? Also, just so you know this, every single time in here that I use single quotes, I could use double quotes. Please listen to this. Don't do that. If it's going to be a static string like this, always use single quotes, even though you can use double quotes. The reason is it takes longer for the system to reconcile it with double quotes as opposed to single quotes, because it's got to look through and see if there's any variables in there. And if there are any variables, it has to go through and it says, oh, you got variables in here, so I've got to use grab the variables value. Here it says, boom, that's just a string. So I came up with those. Then we've got another thing that's correct. You guessed the secret number. All right. Guess error that's in here, and I probably should have put, a couple more comments in, but that guess error, that's going to be one of these. All right, so rather than having to type the stuff in, I just set it at the top, and then I set it equal to those values. Okay? Number is the actual number that was generated. That's the random number. Guess is the guess I made. Does all that make sense? Anything in there that doesn't make sense? Because I'm going to go back up, and then I'm going to come back down to this in just a second, but I want to go back up first to the top. All right. Again, I used the other one that I did in class for you, that simple one. All right, it's in there under like the 9.4 or whatever. I use this as basically, as a jumping off point, and I kind of worked on it from there. What this does, just so you know, I literally went out and I asked for the hexadecimal color of a stop sign. And that's what I used there. That was the red I used. Okay? And I said make it bold. One thing I noticed, I don't know if you know this or not, I did not know this. Okay? When I did this, I came into, this is HTML, but it's CSS inside of HTML, correct? So I came in and I said, well, I'm going to put in some CSS comments here, okay? And when I did this yesterday, no, I think it was HTML comments. That's the problem. So I went in and I put in this. Oops. And it turned green, and then did this, okay? You said, well, big deal, one way or the other. Well, the big deal is, when I came in here and I tried to play around with comments, I put, for a while, I had the comment right here. I knew I was going to want to comment something, so I did this. When I did that, you think, well, that doesn't do anything, right? It's just a blank comment. It took the bolding off. I'm not sure why, but it took off the bolding. So as soon as I took it out, put the bolding back in again. So again, that's if it's an error condition, I want it to turn red and be bolded. Make sense? That's it for that. All right, and again, I could have put that in a separate CSS file, but that's all the CSS almost that I put in here. Okay? All right. The parameters for the guess was that it had to be between 1 and 100. Again, this is how you set up in PHP. This is how you set up constants. Remember that when you define the constant like this, you have to put it in single or double quotes. There's no reason to use double quotes right there because there's not a value inside of there. All right? But when you use min guess and max guess after you define them, they can't be in single or double quotes. So this says the smallest number I'm expecting is 1, the largest number I'm expecting is 100. Does that make sense? Those are my constants. Now I went over all this stuff, so I'm not going to go over that again. What I did here was I never, I never, in my opinion, get enough practice using span. So what I wanted to do with a span tag is I wanted every single time you saw that that's printing out, that guess error is printing out red and it's bolded. That's the stuff that's here. But when it's correct, I wanted it to be green. So I went up and looked online for the color of a stoplight, green stoplight. I used red stoplight at first, but I didn't like the way it resonated on here. Even bolded, it just didn't look right. That's why I went to a stop sign. All right. And what this allows me to do, start span and end span, I'm just creating, those are just variables. But what I'm doing is inside of my PHP, what am I doing there? I'm writing CSS. And here I'm writing more CSS. All right? And when I first did it, it's way down here. What I had to do was I had to break out of HTML right here. Say that again. What I did right here is I broke out of PHP, started HTML. Okay? Then I broke out of the HTML and went back to PHP. Then I did it again. And I thought, that's really a pain, and it really looked ugly. So I wrote the stuff right inside of my PHP variables. You can do that like this. You can write JavaScript and stick it inside of a PHP variable. You can write HTML. I could write an entire table and stick it inside of a variable, of a PHP variable, then say echo followed by that variable name, and it would work just fine. All right. All right. This basically says, since again I used a get there, this basically says, did I press the submit button? Okay, there's only one button. And if I press the submit button, I want to grab the guess. Okay? And then you look here and you go, wait a minute. Guess equals $guess number, and if is set number. So please look, like I said, I tried to put some comments in here so it'd be easier for you to read. This is grabbing the guess that I just put in right there. That's guess. Does that make sense? That's guess. Whatever goes in here, that's guess. Number, on the other hand, is the actual secret number that was generated between 1 and 100. That's not going to be shown except in here. All right? That's again why I used get, because now it shows what the number is. Okay? When I first did it, I was just printing the number out. And I thought, well, that's cheating, and so is this, but it's not nearly as bad. Okay? If I just change that to post, I can get it to work, and then the number won't show. Okay? So, if number hasn't been set, then I want to set it. That's the easiest way to create a random number in PHP. Rand, and then in parentheses, whatever the number is. It doesn't do a lot of seeding of the rand. In other words, I was getting the same number a lot when I did this. There were like recurring patterns, and I just didn't want to take the time to find out how to seed the rand in PHP. It's fine. Now, so where did I get this? Right? And you look down here and you go, okay, it's got to be down here someplace. Well, let's see. There's guess. Okay, there's guess. So where's the other one? Well, number is hidden. And that's what's showing me the actual number right there. So it's either going to be an already generated number, or if it hasn't been generated yet, I'm telling it right here to generate the number. So when I get down to here, ideally, I've clicked the button to submit my guess, and there's a number for me to guess. Does that make sense? Okay. So now I got to check my different types of conditions. If it's empty, if it was empty, all right, then I do the no guess error, which means if it was empty, I want to put in there, no guess made, try again. And you'll see when I run this, if it's empty, no guess made, try again, just to make sure that that's working. No guess made, try again. That makes sense? Okay, so that's the first one. If it gets down to this else right here, well, the field's not empty. It still might not be valid, but it's not empty. Now, I've accounted for this condition right here, no guess, but I still have to account for all of this stuff. That either it was non-numeric, or it was out of range, or it was too high, or it was too low, or I got it right. So it's one of those 5 things. Does that make sense? Has to be one of those 5. Okay? So when I get down to that else right here in line 67, it's one of those 5 things. Okay? So the first thing I checked was it not numeric? If it's not numeric, I set the red text in there to non-numeric error, which means it's going to say non-numeric guess, try again. So the code that just ran is when I do this. Non-numeric guess, try again. Okay? But if that isn't true, then I know it's got to be, at least it's got to be numeric. So if I get down to this else if or this else, it's numeric. Still might not be within range, but I put in a number. So now I check to see if it is within range. If it's less than 1 or if it's greater than 100, I set guess error to out of range error, which is what? Out of range guess. Less than 0 or greater than 100. So if I run this again and I put my guess in there as 777, out of range error. Let me clear it out. All right, and let's put in negative 777. Again, out of range guess. I'm trying to account for all the conditions. You know, you can say, well, you can never account totally for human stupidity. I'd agree with that. All right, but I'm doing the best I can here. All right, so that's that. So now if I get down to here, I put in a valid number. So I put in a number between 1 and 100. Does that make sense? So now I got to check if it's less than the number. Notice what I do last. Why did I put that one last? Yeah, but why did I put it last? Yes, no. Why did I put it last? What's the chances of me guessing the right number? 1 out of 100, correct? So there's a 99% chance I'm going to guess either too high or too low. So why not put my checks for too high and too low at the beginning? Okay? And my other one down here. Otherwise, I'm guessing for, if I put that first, then I'm guessing, looking for the correct one every time. It's not going to happen most of the time, unless I'm incredibly lucky. All right? So again, if the guess was less than the number that I input, I'm going to set it to too low error, which is guess too low, try again. So that's this. What is it? The number is 12, so I'll put in 1. Guess too low, try again. All right? On the other hand, if my guess was too high, all right, I'm going to set it to too high error, and too high error is guess too high, try again. So again, the number is 12, so I'll put in 13. Guess too high, try again. All right? If it gets all the way down to here, now I have put in the right number. So I'm going to say, start writing in green, put in, you guessed the correct number, correct guess says, you guessed the secret number. And this says, make it green, write it out, stop making it green. Then there's different ways of generating random numbers. I wanted to look how it was done, so I looked at a few different ways, and this is yet another way you can do it. I could have done it the same way that's up here, this simple way. I could have done that. But I showed you another way, and I gave the URL from Stack Overflow. You know what printf is. You know what printf is from the C class. And printf just says that you can write to the console. That's all. You can write on the, on your console. Sprintf says instead of writing it to the console, you write it out to memory. Well, I'm writing this out, and it's invisible anyway because it's hidden. So this says go out and grab me a number that's up to 3 characters, 3 digits, no decimal, make it a random number between 1 and 100. That's just another way of getting a random number. And I put the URL from Stack Overflow, so if you have an interest in looking, you can. This line that's here that says hello, I'll uncomment it. All right? And to show you, this is what I was doing originally when I ran it. So when you run this, what was it, 12? See? Now it tells you what the number is, which makes it a lot easier to guess. All right? So that was quick, even faster than I thought it would be. Is there anything that's in there that doesn't make sense? Please look up here. I didn't need that. That was from the last program. I didn't use it, so I should have done that, but I didn't. Sorry about that. All right, the program I'll double check to make sure, but it still should work just fine. All right, so it's, well, it says it's 12. 12, right? Oh, it's 31. There it is. So there's too low, there's too high, there's no value, there's non-numeric, and there's the right value. So notice, as soon as I do that, boom. All right, and I put in, and I start submitting a guess, boom. As soon as I click submit a guess again, it's giving me a new number. Does all that make sense? So especially if you're struggling in here, I'd strongly suggest that you take a look at the program. All right? You know, and maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right. You say, well, yeah, why don't you just give us an electronic copy? I don't want people to be just taking the programs that I'm writing and saying, yeah, I want you to do stuff on your own. At least this way, if you do that, you do have to enter it in yourself. The chances are pretty good you're going to make mistakes, which is a good thing, because that's how you're going to learn. Again, there are other ways that you could have done this. And just for the hell of it, I even went out to Google and I Googled PHP guessing game program, and they had some too. Right? And it was interesting because I started following some threads on Stack Overflow, and one guy said, you shouldn't do it like that. That's really asinine. And another guy came back and said, you shouldn't say stuff like that. You know, it was all, you get a lot of that stuff on there. But it was very interesting to listen and to read the threads and see what some people had to say about the stuff that, you know, oh, yeah, when you write it, you really should do this. Somebody writes back, no, you shouldn't. You know, and they start to get into these online battles with one another. So that's that one. This is the other thing. You don't know this because you're not in that class, but I just want to show something to everybody. They've already seen this, but I just want to show this to everybody. Let's see. Yeah, I want to be in Visual Studio, so give me a second here. Hopefully it'll let me open it from here, but I don't know if it will or not, so. What was it, Chapter 3, Future Value, I think? This is what we were doing in a different class, and this is where I got the program example from. So if I run this, I never tried to run something from the P drive on here. That's why I didn't know if it would let me do it or not. I'm going to try to make mine look just like this. Remember the one we did in class? I've got the image. That shouldn't. I have no idea. I've never tried to draw a frame like that in PHP, but I don't think it'll be hard. I should probably be able to do it using CSS, hopefully. But I'm going to try to make it as much as possible look just like that one. All right. So when you come in here Tuesday, you'll have that one too. And the way it works, you know, put in some numbers, calculate, boom, it gives you a number there. You click clear, and everything clears up. Okay. I'm going to try to set it up pretty much just like that one. Oh yeah, you could. There's a lot of ways that this could be done. I mean, I'm not going to go nuts with the CSS on it. I might look and see what they did for Muroc and mimic something like that, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time making it a pretty interface, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I've got the image. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I've got that image. That I'm not worried about. It's just the rest of it. Got the image. Hell, that's just an H1 tag, and I have to make it blue. Big deal. That's not going to be anything. These are just labels. That's nothing there either. All right, drop down, text box, button. Okay. The button of this calculate button right here is going to be the equivalent of just coming in and what I just showed you before when we did the guess. This, I want to see, because I started thinking about this before. I'm going to see if I can do that by using PHP to write some JavaScript to clear that stuff up. Write myself a little JavaScript routine and run it right from PHP and see if that works. I haven't tried that. I haven't even checked to see if I can do that, but I'm going to try to. So that's what you're going to have coming up then on Tuesday. All right, we'll do that for the first hour, and the rest of the week, next week, in the PHP class will be lab. All right, so come a week from Tuesday, 2 weeks from today is the 2nd, so the 30th, I think that is. Then we're going to go back over chapters 8 and 9. All right, and we're going to be very webby, so to speak, in the stuff that we do from then on. That's all I had. Unless there's any questions.